Greetings, seekers. Welcome back to my game room. This week I'm going to talk about a game called Tab. And this is part of our Peg Pastime series on the games of ancient Egypt. There are games very, very similar to this game of Tab, which go way back in history, thousands of years. The actual game Tab itself has been speculated to only be but a few centuries old. Still qualifies for ancient, I guess, in some definition of the word, but be that as it may, it is definitely a historic classical game from North Africa. Now, in addition to that confusion, there are some sources that say this game evolved from an Indian game called Tablan. And there are a lot of similarities between Tab and Tablan, not just the name. According to R.C. Bell, the game of Tablan was being played as recent as the beginning of the 20th century in India. But therein begs the question, which came first, Tab or Tablan? But regardless of this other speculation, the first written record of the game Tab in the West was in 1694 by our old friend Sir Thomas Hyde of the English court. And this is a diagram from that book, which is pretty obviously the game Tab. And then in 1820, Sir Edward William Lane wrote in his book, The Manners and Customs of the Modern Egyptians, that describe the game of Tab being played. There are regional variations of the game, different numbers of stick dice being used, the ability to stack pieces and move them together. But what it comes down to is that Tab is a member of that exclusive club of games that's called the running fight game, wherein the pieces are moving around the track, around and around and around, and chasing each other and capturing each other as they go, the object being to eliminate the opponents. So here then are the rules to the Peg Pastimes edition of the game Tab. A set of 4 stick dice are used to determine the movement. The active player takes up the 4 sticks in their fist, holding them vertically a few inches off the playing surface. They open their hand to release the sticks. How these sticks land indicates the movement available for that turn. If only one stick lands flat side up, the player can move one peg one space, then take another turn. As one would expect, 2, 3, or 4 sticks flat side up indicates a move of 2, 3, or 4. If the result is 4, the player also gets another turn. Finally, if none of the sticks land flat side up, this is considered a result of 6. And again, the player gets another turn. And the players take turns tossing the stick dice until someone tosses a 1. The first move of the game must be a 1. Until all of one's pegs have moved, the result of 1 must be used to move a peg off its starting position. The pegs are moved in a zigzag pattern across the board. Shown here is the path, followed by the orange pegs. The white pegs follow the same path as seen from the other side of the board. Once a peg is moved from its starting position, it can move any number of spaces as indicated by the results on the stick dice. Once a peg has left row 1, it can never return there. There are restrictions, however, on which paths they can take once they start moving, explained later. If a peg's move would end on a space already occupied by one's own peg, that move cannot be made. Another peg must be chosen for the move, or the move may be forfeited. If a peg's move ends on an opponent's peg, the opponent's peg is removed from the game. If the die result allows for another go, additional opposing pegs may be captured in the same turn. Pegs can pass any other pegs on the path without any effect. Once a peg has reached the end of row 3, the player may have a choice to continue on to row 4 if the following are both true. A. The peg has never moved into row 4, and B. There is still at least one opponent's peg in row 4. If this route is chosen when the peg enters row 4, it is replaced by its complementary color, white with yellow, orange with red. A peg which has moved into row 4 cannot be moved again on a future turn if its owner still has any of their own pegs remaining on row 1. When a peg leaves row 4 on the left end, it will cycle back into the loop at row 3 and join the fray as a normal peg. Because it has been in row 4, as indicated by its color, it cannot re-enter row 4 for the rest of the game. If the player chooses instead to cycle back onto row 2 instead of entering row 4, movement continues normally. A peg can travel the loop in rows 2 and 3 indefinitely as the game continues. The game does continue until one player has lost all of their pegs, and therefore the other player has won the game. And that, my friends, is how you play Tab. We hope you get an opportunity to check it out further. We have the entire set of ancient Egyptian games for sale now online. If you would like to buy one or all of them, by all means check out the links in the show notes below. If you have some comments, some suggestions, some questions, more links about the game Tab and different ways to play, be sure and share that with me. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel, please do, and be sure to click that button so that we'll remind you when we have a new episode out, and you can learn some more about board games. So meanwhile, like I always say sometimes, be sure to play every day.